What is going on, guys? It's David from Aqua Otter, and welcome back to another One Piece chapter review. I'm going to be changing up the format of the chapter reviews this week. Normally I just kind of like recap the entire chapter and give my, like I go like page by page, talking about panel by panel, and give my opinions on it, but, I've been wanting to change it up a little bit. I've been a little dissatisfied with the way that I've been doing things, so I don't know, we're going to try this format out. Do me a favor, and at the end of this video, if you like this format better, or you want me to go back to the old one, just go ahead and leave a comment telling me what you guys think about it. So we're going to just go ahead and get started talking about the chapter. I'm going to just kind of briefly talk about like the things that happened, the big important things, give my opinions on them, and then we're going to talk about theories and breakdowns and stuff at the end of the video. So with that being said, we're going to get right into chapter 1015. It's called Chains. So the first big thing that kind of happens within the chapter is we're checking in with everyone on the performance floor. We kind of open back up where we left off last chapter, with everyone kind of realizing now that Luffy has lost to Kaido, and we are kind of checking in specifically with like the fight with Chopper and Queen and all the samurai and how they're taking that news. And so they're not taking it super well. Chopper is very upset, and the main thing that I want to talk about for this is actually Sanji, because this is a huge Sanji chapter. And anybody who is a Sanji fan that has been waiting, this is definitely like the chapter that you want to get into, like waiting for his feats, because I feel like a lot of people have been saying that Sanji's been taking a lot of L's in Wano, but like this is the arc where we get the return of Mr. Prince. And so, you know, Chopper's still in his monster point, but he's very upset. He's crying. He like can't believe that Luffy has lost. And Queen is like kind of taking this opportunity to get the upper hand in their fight. And Sparrow, he is like, you know, also capitalizing on it. He starts to release another giant volley of candy arrows. This move called Apocalyptic Candy Shower. And right as this happens, and Sparrow launches the volley of arrows, and Queen is about to go in and like bite down on Chopper with these new like syringes that are like popping out of his teeth. We get the Sanji moment. We hear Diable Jambe, Rotisserie Strike, and Sanji comes in, still carrying Zoro, by the way. Sanji comes flying in from off screen. He ends up, Diable Jambe'd up. He kicks into the side of Queen's head and actually kicks him so hard that it begins to spin him around, and he catches all of the candy arrows before they're able to land and hit the samurai. And as he's spinning, he also knocks into Sparrow and sends him flying. And Sanji comes in with that Mr. Prince moment. Shout out to, reference back to Eni's lobby with that moment where he shows up and, saves Usopp from Jabra with the, who are you, the hunter. That kind of like cool Sanji moment where after he hits this move, the Diable Jambe Rotisserie Strike, he just lights up a cigarette. He's like, you held out good, Chopper, like, I'll take it from here. And Chopper's like crying at him, being like, oh, but Sanji, Luffy. And he just says, listen, how many times have we been through this before? Like, how many miracles have we seen? And then he says, I'll take it from here. And so we are getting the Sanji versus Queen fight. I'm a little disappointed that it's not going to end up being Queen versus Chopper. Although, even though it was kind of off-screened for most of it, I do think that Chopper had some amazing feats already in Wano. And if that is kind of the end of what Chopper does here fight-wise, I think he's already done more than enough. Because not only was he able to take down Queen's Ice Oni virus in like the later, the earlier chapters, proving that he is like a superior doctor, he was also able to do it in a way that saved everybody, quickly, and also he was able to hold out against both Queen and Sparrow for 20 minutes before Sanji showed up now. because in the last chapter we got that realization that Chopper is able to use his monster point for 30 minutes, and he says that he only has 10 minutes left. So there's 20 minutes worth of Chopper versus Queen that we did not see happen, and at some point during that fight, even maybe right at the beginning, Parasparrow showed up and started kind of providing support from afar with his candy arrows, and Chopper was still able to hold that down. So now Chopper's main goal is to heal Zoro, because Sanji ends up passing, the packed up Zoro off to him, and Sanji is able to focus on Queen. And maybe I've seen some theorizing. I kind of also hope that they might do this, because if Sanji gets healed, or if Zoro gets healed, I hope that Zoro ends up fighting King. And right now, Marco is fighting King. So what could be really cool, because we've already got a couple of like tag team fights, like we've got Brooke and Robin versus Black Maria, and we've got like Nami and Usopp versus, whatever they're going to end up, like whatever their fights are going to end up being. But so what we might see is maybe Zoro and Queen, or Zoro and Marco versus King, and we get maybe Sanji and Chopper versus Queen, which I think would be pretty cool. But like I said, if Chopper doesn't get any more in this arc, I am a-okay with that. Like, I think he's done more than enough, and I am very excited to see Sanji versus Queen, because we do have that connection. Like, I don't like the way that they did it in the official translation. I should also probably note at this point that this week I did actually read the scans as well as the official translation, so that I can kind of compare, because there are a few things that I like how they're translated in the scans better than how I like how they were translated in the translation, like the official translation. And this is one of those moments where, that moment where Sanji is fighting, or decides that he's gonna, like, tells Chopper, like, I'm gonna take down Queen. In the scans, he just says, like, leave the dino to me. And Queen responds by being like, ah, yeah, you're Judge's brat. And remember, we do have that weird unexplained connection that's been like continually hammered home to us between Queen and Judge. And I think that, like, if this fight ends up just being, even if it doesn't end up just being Sanji versus Queen, we're going to get a little bit of that backstory. I am theorizing that both of, it's kind of at this point a little bit, I don't want to say set in stone, because obviously it can't be, but I feel like the natural theory about that is that both of them work together in that like rogue science group with Vegapunk, and and like with all the modifications that are on Queen's body, like I have seen some people theorizing that maybe Queen was like an early prototype of the SSG, which I think would be a really cool direction to take his character. Of course, we still don't know, like, what the SSG is, but, like, maybe he was, like, a prototype pacifista before, like, Kuma ended up coming around, and that was, like, the body that they ended up using for all of the, like, modifications, and then ending up, like, mass-producing the pacifista army. But, yeah, so I am excited to maybe get a little bit of backstory between Queen and his tie to the Vinsmokes, and specifically Judge. And, yeah. And I do want to point out that on top of, like, the huge win that this is for Sanji, like, this awesome, like, return to form, this badass, like, pre-time skip Sanji, where, Oda loves to give Sanji a savior moment. Like, we see it so much, like, that. I'm thinking right now of, like, that classic panel in Alabasta where, like, he shows up and, like, kicks the Banana Gator. Like, I'm not sure if you guys who are One Piece fans, like, have that panel as clearly in your mind as I do, but, like, it's just, like, such an iconic panel, and I get that feeling with this rotisserie strike panel, where it's, like, this big panel of, like, Sanji's got the Diable Jambe up on his feet, and he's just kicking into the side of Queen. Like, it's honestly, it's just, like, so badass, but I do want to also say, this is no raid suit Sanji. So, like, all the people that have been reading Wano and being like, oh, Sanji, he's got to rely on his family's technology to get stronger. Like, that's what his power-up's going to be. Like, he doesn't. I do think that at some point he's going to end up using the raid suit in the fight to end up, like, fully overcoming Queen. But, like, this is just kind of Oda showing us that he does not need that raid suit to still be Sanji, to be that badass. But yeah, so before we move on to, like, the next portion of the review, I do just want to point out, like, the single panel that we get of Marco, which I really, really like, because it's kind of like, there's this moment right before we get this panel where the samurai are kind of looking at Sanji and everybody and being like, how are they going to keep fighting even though their captain's dead, like how do they still find the will to fight? And we get this single panel of Marco, and he says, like, you know, that's why I like these guys. And I really like that because it's such like a small indication. But like, first off, let's just talk about anybody putting respect on the Straw Hat's name. Like, that right there is just a win on its own. And I always love when we see people, specifically established pirates. Like, that's why one of my favorite moments from like these like 1000 chapters, specifically like when talking about Roof Piece, like one of my favorite moments on Roof Piece is that panel where Kaido looks at Luffy and is like, how high will this kid's ceiling go? And you see like all of the great pirates that Kaido respected behind Luffy. You know, you see Whitebeard, you see Roger, Shanks, Odin, and Rocks, like all silhouetted behind Luffy. Like, anytime an established pirate within the universe puts respect on the Straw Hats, I love that. But also, specifically because it's Marco, like, Marco led the Whitebeard pirates after Whitebeard's death, and he led those pirates into the Payback War. And granted, you know, the Payback War didn't end up going well for them, but like, of course he would respect the Straw Hats, you know, continuing to fight after their captain was gone, because that's exactly what the Whitebeard pirates did. And they did it under his command. And so, like, I just love it. I love that panel so much. But now we get into, it has been a long while, since One Piece reading it has made me cry. And there are certain moments within One Piece that no matter what, no matter how many times I see it, will always make me cry. I have one of the panels tattooed on my back. That is how much this specific moment means to me. The moment in Alabasta at the end of the arc where they're all saying goodbye to Vivi. That moment, no matter how many times I see that with all their arms up in the air and they've got the X's on their arms, that moment will always make me cry. But it has been a long time since and especially a long time since I have got caught up to reading weekly, that a panel has made me cry. And we get it. This is the chapter, man. This is the chapter that made me cry. Because this next part, it's just so rough. So we completely cut away from the performance floor and everything with Sanji and Zoro and Chopper and all of that. And we go to Kaido and Momonosuke, back where we left off at the last chapter. How, you know, the last thing that we saw in the last chapter was Kaido bringing that Kanabo down on Kinimon. And we start off by specifically and explicitly showing the bodies of Kiku and Kanjuro. So I will say it, as much as I don't want to, and I stressed this in my last video, in my last review, I did not want Kiku to die. I still don't want her to be dead, but she is dead. Unfortunately, Kiku is dead. And Kanjuro is dead as well. But someone who is not dead yet is Kinimon. And before I get into like talking about what happens, I want to kind of express my thoughts on Kiku dying, because I was very upset at the end of last chapter, thinking that Oda would have killed Kiku. And I have learned a little bit about the character and the folklores that Kiku is based off of, and how it kind of makes more sense for her to die. And I've also kind of come around a little bit to the idea of Kiku's death. And I will tell you why. Because Kiku dying does more for her character than anything else in this arc has, or in the story ever will. And the one reason why is because, you know, everyone always ends up making fun of Oda or having gripes with Oda for killing characters and then not killing characters. You know, like, there's this whole joke within the community, the Will of P. You know, we had Pell in Alabasta, where he flew away, not once but twice, where we faked out with his death. You know, we had his fight with Robin where we thought he was dead, and then we had the moment where he flew away with the giant bomb, the bomb exploded, and still somehow he's alive. And, you know, there are characters that should they be dead? Yes, I kind of agree. Maybe Pell definitely should have died. You know, Pound as well. But the characters that do die, the very few times that Oda decides to actually pull the trigger and kill someone. Think about what that does for the character in terms of the story. My favorite character in One Piece, 100% my favorite character, and I cannot even really explain why he has just always been my favorite character, is Ace. And if you really think about it, what has Ace done in the story to deserve to be my favorite character? The first time that we meet him in Alabasta, and what does he do? He shows up, he says, "Hi, I'm Luffy's brother," and then he kind of disappears. And then the next time that we see him there's that little cover story of him looking for Blackbeard, and then the next time that we see him is the fight against Blackbeard on Banaro Island. And that's an amazing fight. It's like a super hype chapter, but then we have this whole catalyst that ends up becoming the catalyst for something so much bigger that happens in the world. We get the Paramount War out of it, and then at the end of the war, he dies. Spoiler alert, for something that happened a long time ago, but he dies, and that immortalized him in the story. Ace's legacy is continuing to live on. Even now, in the present day, we feel Ace's impact in Wano. With Otama, with Yamato, all these connections that these characters have to Ace. And the same thing with Whitebeard. Like, do you think that Whitebeard, as legendary of a character as Whitebeard is, do you think that he would stay legendary if he lived? Or Odin? Would anybody be happy seeing Odin still alive? Like, genuinely, after what we went through, using a current character, after what we went through in this arc, would anybody be happy seeing Odin alive? We saw this whole flashback, his entire life, his rise and fall as a shogun, and his epic life and epic death, and what that death meant, and what it did for the character. If all of a sudden Odin was alive, I feel like we would be cheated in some way. Because in a way, he is a much more immortalized character by the fact that he is no longer here, and people have to carry on the will, which, huge theme in One Piece, inherited will. People have to carry on his will after his death. So, by truly killing Kiku, he immortalizes her. He immortalizes forever one of the first truly confirmed trans characters within the story. And I think that is a better legacy for this character than Oda could have done ever. And granted, did all this whole long-winded thing that I just went on, this whole long-winded rant, could that have been said in the last chapter review? Yes, but I wanted to put it in here now because I wanted to say it. If Kiku is alive, I would personally be happy because I feel like I love the character so much. I don't want Kiku to die, but if she stays dead, she is immortalized forever within the confines of the story, and I'm okay with that. But anyway, so now what happens? Kaido is going after Momo, and Kinimon stabs into Kaido, and these are where the tears start coming, because we get a flashback to when Kinimon and Momonosuke first arrived and decided that they were going to travel out of Wano, and Kinimon is telling Momo that Momo needs to refer to him as his father, and that he will be, acting as Kinemon's son. And we get this whole flashback showing, all their trials and their tribulations, the trouble that they had coming to terms with this as retainer and lord, now having to pose as the opposite, because in a way, Momo being Kinemon's son, that does end up taking Momo from his lordship status, Kinemon serving under him, to now kind of swapping in the way that they have to behave. And we see how difficult it was for them in the beginning. And then the final panel in this flashback that we get, these series of panels of flashes that we get, is their reunion on Zou, where Kinemon is yelling out for, Momonosuke, and we get Momonosuke, father. And Kinemon is just desperately, he's pretty much on death's door at this point. He's desperately doing anything that he can, stabbing his broken blade into Kaido to try and stop him from going after Momo. And we can see in this flashback that Kinimon is desperately trying to save his son. And what happens? Kaido lifts up what I believe to be Kiku's blade, because we do get to see that, when we see Kiku and Kanjuro's body, the only sword that we see on the ground is Kiku's. And the hilt does kind of match. So, going with what was said in the Weaver cards about Kiku's character and the kind of deeper feelings that she had for Kinimon, this just kind of makes it hurt even more. But what happens is we get to further solidify that we are living Momonosuke's backstory, which has now completely, this chapter alone has completely turned my opinions 180 on whether or not Momonosuke will be joining the crew at the end of Wano. I think that he is definitely leaving, because we are living his tragic backstory. Kaido stabs through the back of Kinimon, and the tears, man. This was a rough one. This was really, really rough for me to read. And I love what Kaido ends up saying here, where he's like, face your death like a true warrior. The problem with death is the problem with defeat is that so few can accept it when it comes. And just such a great moment for Kaido's character as well. It sucks that it's at the expense of Kinimon, but real quick, before I get too far away from Momonosuke, this being Momonosuke's tragic backstory, this panel is silhouetted, Kinemon's death, the death of of Momonosuke's adopted father, is silhouetted much in the way that many other pertinent character deaths have been silhouetted. The death of Belmare at the hands of Arlong, the death of Corazon at the hands of Doflamingo. These people that are witnessing probably some of the most important people in their lives, their adopted family, dying at the hands of somebody else, because Momo can witness this happening. And man, it's such a shame. But also, once again, what a way to immortalize Kinimon. I know there's so many people in the community that do not like Kinimon as a character, but this is a guy who's been with us for years. He was, before we met Momo, we met Kinimon. He was the first character from this Wano arc that we met, genuinely. And it sucks, man. It really sucks, but the way, if this is it, and so many people are saying oh, well, he's not dead yet. He's not dead. There's gotta, it's Kinimon. He's gotta have some last words. His wife, Oda really set his wife up in this arc, really set that whole thing up with this character being Kinemon's wife, just to have them never reunite. That is so much more heartbreaking. So much more heartbreaking. The fact that he will never, ever reunite with his wife. And also the fact that he died for his son, And for Momonosuke, my God, it's only been 4 months since he got sent into the future, he just witnessed his actual father dying, and now his adopted father dying at the hands of the same person. It was a rough moment, and one that I really, really enjoyed, genuinely. It did make me sad. It gave me a lot of emotions, but what a good author. What a good, not that I have to sit here and drive home that Oda is the GOAT, but yeah. But so anyway, getting away from the actual fresh corpse here, Kinimon ends up continuing to, or not Kinimon, Kaido ends up continuing to chase after Momonosuke, but while this is happening, this is where Momo becomes a goated character as well. And honestly, Momo's character development, through these past couple arcs, and specifically since the beginning of Wano, this kid is this kid is 8 years old. And the fact that like I just said, it's been 4 months pretty much since he saw his actual father die. And now he just witnessed his adopted father dying right in front of him. And what does he do? He does not falter for a second, because he has a Mary. And he announces to the entirety of Onigashima, he announces that Luffy has passed him along a message through the voice of all things. And this is like, holy crap. He tells everybody that Luffy is still alive, and 2, that Luffy is coming back and he is still going to win, so keep fighting. And basically uses this moment, this tragedy, this spare few seconds he has before Kaido catches up to him to get across this message and boost the morale of the entire raid and bring everyone back from pretty much the brink of despair. And let's talk about this, because so much about this, like, what? So we get this moment while this is all happening where Momo is announcing to everybody, where we get this moment where we see Luffy in the water, and it's very, very clear, because remember in the last chapter, Momo was like grabbing his head and like screaming. It's very, very clear that this is a voice of all things thing. But Luffy is found in the water by the Polar Tang, which was my number one choice for how he was going to get saved. I know there was a lot of theories out there about how he was going to get saved, but my number one choice was Law's crew and the Polar Tang. And that is exactly how it happens. He's found by the Polar Tang, and they say, and this is where I like another one where I like the Scans translation of it better. They say it's like we could hear his voice even though we were underwater. And this is where like my theory hat comes on, because like, what does that mean? For me, I immediately drew parallels to all the way back in Skypiea when we got the Noland flashback, and there was that moment where the Bell of Shandia was calling out through the storm to Noland. And like, granted, this is a little speculative, because the thing about Noland is that Noland is a character that, you know, we don't really know a lot about, but he is kind of set up in such a way that like Noland is a character that very well could have possessed the voice of all things, but like calling out through the darkness to people's hearts, to people's like souls or whatever, like they could hear his voice, even though, one, there's no way that like all the members of Law's crew have the voice of all things. Like that would be just insane. So it's like, what exactly is this? Like, what is this power that Luffy is like manifesting here? And like, what does that mean for like where the story is going to go with like what I need to know what the voice of all things is. Like, I have no clue, but I loved that parallel, because to me, like reading it, I just immediately felt like that parallel to Noland and like just being called out to through the darkness. But yes, so Kaido ends up catching up to Momo at this point, and in like a desperate bid to get away, Shinobu ends up using her devil fruit, the Juku Juku no Mi, or the ripe fruit in the English, you know, the Viz translation. She uses it to rot away the ground of Onigashima, and Shinobu and Momo start falling. And so now a few things happen here in quick succession leading into the end. We check in with Nami and Usopp and Tama, and they are like celebrating, of course, that Luffy's alive, and someone else is celebrating with them, and Nami is like, who said that? And it's her climate act. So we have this reveal that Zeus is now the climate act. And there's a lot of debate about this, about whether he is in the climate act or whether he is the climate act now. I think that it is made pretty clear that Zeus is the climate act now. Like somehow his soul got taken from the thundercloud and put into the climate act. And now the climate act is in itself a homie, which, talk about power-ups. Like, I cannot wait to see, because now, if there was ever any doubt, Nami is getting a fight on Onigashima. She's getting some kind of fight to show off this new power. And I can't wait to see, like, how much powerful she is. And then there is, we go and we check in with Big Mom and Kid, who Kid is saying, like, or Big Mom is saying, like, no way is he still alive. Like, he fell into the water. And this is another moment where I really like this is actually a moment where I like the Viz translation more than I like the official translation, because as she says all this, who should show up but Mr. Trafalgar Law? And he says, yeah, but the longer you work with him, the more you get this funny feeling that he'll find his way out of things in the end. And Kid is like, dude, what are you doing? Are you going to interfere with my fight? And he's like, no, listen, like, don't you think we should play nice for now? But I love this because, like, Law's growth during his time with the Straw Hats is something that I don't think I was ever expecting, but I love so much. Like, he has changed so much, and like Luffy specifically has had this kind of impact on him. Like, I was in a live stream of someone like reading the chapter live this week, and someone in the live chat basically said like, oh, well, it's a good thing that Luffy got picked up by the Heart Pirates because he needs to become familiar with his new Grand Fleet members. And honestly, if Law ended up being like a new Grand Fleet member by the end of this, if the Heart Pirates ended up joining the Grand Fleet, which I don't think will happen, because I do think that Oda has bigger things in store for the Supernovas, specifically these three, specifically Luffy, Kid, and Killer, or not Luffy, Kid, and Law, sorry, not Killer, but then like just them ending up serving, the Grand Fleet. But I am so interested to see like where Law's story is going to go. And honestly, I kind of feel like after Wano, the Heart Pirates, like that's going to be the last that we see of Law for a little while, probably until the final war. And I'm going to be a little sad to not have Law in the story anymore, because just like Kinimon, like Law's now been around for a long time. I mean, we met Law all the way back in Sabaody, but like he's been kind of with the Straw Hats all the way since Punk Hazard, and like it's going to be weird, to say the least, like when he's no longer like a regular part of the story. And then the final bit of the chapter, moving into like the actual end, is we see Kaido. We're back outside with Kaido right after Momonosuke and Shinobu have fallen. I do think that they are not falling in the water. I think that they're actually, because at the end of the last chapter, it said that Wano was, Onigashima was approaching the Wano mainland. I do think that they are going to actually fall into Wano. And possibly, my theory is that they are going to end up back where Hitetsu is. And it is going to be revealed, which is a big theory in the community, it's going to be finally revealed that Hitetsu is actually Momonosuke's grandfather, Sukiyaki, which is going to end up, setting up how Momo can end up leaving Wano behind to go with the Straw Hats, because there will still be someone here to rule Wano, someone from the Kozuki clan to rule Wano in his stead while he's gone. But I think so. Kaido is there, he's standing, and someone yells out for him, and it's Yamato, and we are finally getting, and this is like kind of, I always say, like when I'm watching TV shows or stuff, there's always that like roll credits moment where like they say the name of it. This is where we get like the title drop where, he calls out, Yamato ends up calling out for Kaido, and Kaido is like, "Don't you mean father?" And he's like, "No, I've come here to cut those chains," drop. But I am so excited, because do you know what this means, guys? Do you know what this means? Anyone who's been watching my videos for a little while now knows that I have said that the Kaido flashback is going to start right as soon as as Yamato ends up meeting up with Kaido again, because their flashbacks are going to be intertwined. And that is going to be where we get Yamato's tragic backstory. I am convinced, 100% convinced, that by the end of this arc, Yamato is joining the crew. And I know there are so many arguments as to why he can't join the crew, because there's this whole, oh, well, he read the logbook. It doesn't matter. Yamato's joining the crew. I am steadfast on this. Yamato is going to be part of the crew by the end of Wano. I cannot wait. And that's my prediction. That's it. That's my prediction for the next chapter, because the next chapter is going to start the Kaido flashback, so that we have the parallel Act 3 opened with the Oden flashback. Act 3 will end with the Kaido flashback. The man who started it all, and the man who is currently, is the one who messed it all up. We're getting their flashbacks to parallel each other. But yeah, dude, what a chapter. And I like, genuinely, I cannot believe, and I gotta say, like, I watch a lot of One Piece YouTubers, because I just now coming into the community doing these videos, and like, granted, I don't have like a huge following on here, I'm slowly trying to build up my following, and I'm working really hard. I'm getting a new computer, hopefully in the next couple months, to like upgrade my quality and my equipment. I really want to focus more on like trying to edit these better, but like just now kind of trying to dip my toe into the community. I have not been part of the One Piece community for a while, like a long, long time. And so I watch a lot of One Piece YouTubers so I can kind of keep myself up to date with like what the rumblings are within the community. Like what's everyone talking about? What are the big theories that are kind of widely accepted by everybody? And I cannot believe the amount of people that are still holding out. And granted, I've said this before, I think this might be recency bias, but I can't believe the amount of people that are still like on the edge of whether or not Wano is even in their top 5. Like, I don't think that Wano, by the time everything is said and done, I don't think that Wano will end up beating, like, Enies Lobby for me. Because, like, if I had to really think, like, Enies Lobby and Water 7, like, those are probably, like, 2 of my favorite arcs of all time. But to me, Wano is definitely one of the greatest arcs in One Piece. And it's not even finished yet. Like, we are still, like, I can't even say that we're at the point where we're actively sprinting towards the finish line of the arc. And Oda is just dropping every single chapter. Like, these past couple chapters have been so freaking enjoyable to read. I cannot even believe that, like, I have waited so long to read One Piece and, like, get caught up weekly. Like, how did it take me this long? And, like, but at the same time, I'm glad because, like, I cannot think of a better time to be reading One Piece weekly than right now. And, like, the fact that there's no break next week, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. But with that being said, God, if you like the video, please like. And if you want to see more from me, subscribe, because I am just having such a blast. I'm literally having the time of my life doing these reviews and reading One Piece. And, like, what a time to be a One Piece fan. Remember, if you guys would please just leave a comment letting me know how you guys like this video compared to my other videos. I think I'm going to do a few videos like in this kind of looser format where I'm not exactly like reading panel by panel and telling everyone like what's happening. I know that there was a little bit of that kind of peeked out every now and again. But, I felt like this was generally just more looser, just kind of, talking about what happened and what I think is, what I think about it and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought about that in the comments. And, as always, I appreciate the hell out of all of you for watching these videos. This is the highlight of my week, sitting down and getting to rant about One Piece. But yeah, until next time, thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys in chapter 1016.